guys, welcome back to Rabbit Hole Stories. Yet another episode. We're smashing these episodes, Joel. It's
hmm
brilliant. I'm loving it. Like we've been doing it since, well, we've released episodes since Proof of Keys Day, and
hmm
it just seems like we're just showing up and just having a bit of a laugh and learning a bit more about Bitcoin, and I'm loving it. But we just had Rob on the show. We went down a bit of a philosophical,
hmm
therapeutic journey, and I think we didn't trauma bond, Rob and I, but we did discuss the mind, body, and soul a little bit. I
Trauma
think Rob's
bond.
a little bit more. Yeah, we did kind of trauma bond. But Rob, I think, is a little bit more spiritual than I am, and I'm kind of less spiritual, but more kind of, you know, inner thinking, philosophically minded,
hmm
which I suppose both are, and he just maybe thinks of it as more spiritual. But that's what I kind of got from the episode. What did you get from it?
I mean, I've seen Rob at the Riga
Oh,
conference
you
on
got his book, yeah.
stage and read his book, and I really hope that they put the his talk up because it was quite interesting, and it's just fascinating the way he basically was able to conclude that we can sort of like a computer program our mind. I mean, you can't program emotions and these kind of things. So this is very much a human
Mm,
error, if you want to say so. But the
mm,
way we go about certain things and how positive and negative influences can have a major impact in your life, I think that was quite fascinating. Not to like spoil the whole thing.
mm.
And yeah, just generally speaking, Rob's a great guy. He's funny. He's entertaining. Um, I could have listened to him for hours. But yeah, I don't want to take anything away from the listeners. So.
Yeah, but one thing before we get into it, what I also think I connected with him on was the fact that we see Bitcoin and the correlation between sort of more
Mhm.
philosophical stuff, and I think we kind of see things in the same way. So I'm looking forward to maybe reaching out to him again and having
Yep.
a sit down and a discussion with him in the future. He might actually be back on the show. So yeah, guys, enjoy the rest of this episode. Let's go down this journey with Rob.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode with Rabbit Hole Stories. And today, I personally am very excited. We have Rob on. I met Rob in Riga. I listened to your talk, bought your book, got a signed copy, and thought we had to bring you on. How has your day been, Rob?
It's been lovely today. I met with Nico from Consensus over here in Madeira for lunch, and it's been running around the playground playing this new game that my daughter's come up with. So I'm a bit sore right now from running, but a good day.
Mate, you got to do your dad duties, right?
Got to do
Yeah,
it.
you just got to go along with the flow, right? Every day's a school day when it comes to being a father.
It is.
Thank you for joining us here, Rob, at Rabbit Hole Stories. And as you may already know, we're all about how you got into Bitcoin. What is it that really sort of sparked your curiosity of falling down this rabbit hole? And what are you doing now in the space? So I think we just lead it over to you now, and we'll just go on this journey with you, Rob.
Okay. Well, the way my brain works is all kind of jumbled up, so I don't come on with a
You
particular.
are not alone, Rob. So yeah,
Okay,
do
yeah,
what
yeah.
you need to do.
A lot of Bitcoiners are like that. So um, I was just I think in one of your I was just thinking about the orange pill, how I was orange pilled, and then how I got into Bitcoin, and I think it was sort of for me, all roads sort of led to the the point where I had that particular, the moment where someone told me about it, and so it was just. I always think that nothing ever happens by accident. It's just you're moving towards a certain point. So I would say about 2-3 years before I went down the rabbit hole with Bitcoin. I went down the rabbit hole with looking at value and money because something happened to me where, well, first of all, I had my first child, and that really shook me to really think about how am I going to take responsibility for this new child, and I don't want her to have an impoverished childhood. So that kicked me up the ass a bit. And so what I decided to do was I realized that I didn't understand value and money, so I started studying money books. And I know myself well enough now that if I just put my energy into something so my decision is made, then the right information will come to me as long as I'm taking responsibility and reading that stuff. So I read a ton of books. I was really going at it quite hard. So maybe 3-4 hours a day of reading podcasts and trying to understand. I didn't understand stocks. I couldn't get it. But I was trying to understand why people did that, and all different aspects of value. And so if what happened was I was over. I have very high network individual clients, and one invited me to Asia for a birthday, and so I was there, and I met one of my client friends who's a professional poker player and investor, and very, very clever, and someone who I always listened to. And I asked him what he was into, and what he was into right now, and he said, I'm all in on something. And I was like for him to be all in on something was very unusual. I said, what do you mean all in? He goes, everything, all in. And I said, what is it? And he said, Bitcoin. And my hairs went up, and I kind of knew. I was like, that's it. So for me, it was, I've had moments in my life where something drops. I'm like, that's something very special just happened. And I'll talk to you. I'll bring up the weight shift story from my book, which was another moment that really took me very clearly down another avenue. So he told me about Bitcoin. He explained it somewhat, and then I remember really the only thing that he said to me that really stuck was, you will only be able to hold Bitcoin to the amount that or you can only value it or hold it to the amount you value yourself. Or you could come at that different ways. Like, if you don't value yourself, you can't hold anything of value. And I see that with my clients all the time. They will literally have to remove the value from them if they accidentally bring it into their life. So they'll sabotage or something. So he said, you need to do the work, which is valuable, proof of work, to understand the value. Otherwise, you won't be able to hold it. And I thought about that, and I was like, okay, I understand that from all the work I've been doing on value. And then I just went bang, straight in, and spent the next few years studying it all day. Anything that I could get my hands off, books, podcasts. I asked computer scientists to try and to explain to me about blockchain, what is blockchain and how it works. And I remember thinking, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I know that if I keep looking at it, there'll be a compounding effect, and I'll get it one day. So I understand blockchain, but I wouldn't stand on stage and try and tell anyone about it. I kind of, I'll listen to smarter people talking about it. But so now, when we crashed to $4,000 or whatever it was, I was buying then because I knew the value. And they say you should feel a bit uncomfortable when should feel a bit sick when you're buying the bottom. But I was like, no, I know the value of this because I've done I know what valuable things are, and there's value in getting in early. And if you understand the things that no one else understands because you've done the work, that's highly valuable. So that was kind of my, he kind of orange pilled me. And now I would say I moved to Madeira to help Andre with Free Madeira, or to be part of Free Madeira org. I wrote a book which was very much focusing in on my skill set, which is working with people, helping them to understand why they do things and how to free themselves from the behaviors and free themselves to enjoy an optimal life. That's what I do. That's my passion. I think about that all the time. And Bitcoin, as I said right at the start, that everything comes together. So Bitcoin's actually helped me question a lot of my work that I do, in my field, and also it's made me question so many things that I think Bitcoin's going to be amazing for getting people to question the deepest red pill, which is to question their minds, which is the what fundamentally, like, Bitcoin will change the world for sure, but to change humanity, each node, which we all are on the blockchain of humanity, needs to take responsibility for their reality and work on it. So that's the deepest proof of work you can do. I'll stop talking.
No worries, no worries. You mentioned your book, and we'll shortly go into it later on. How did you end up where you worked previously? Because you used to be a conditioning strength coach, is that right, with Chelsea?
Right. Yep.
For me personally, the wrong football club, but that's a different topic.
They paid me well.
I wasn't going to get involved in this. But
yeah, no worries, no worries. As long as the pay is good, that's the thing, right? But how did you end up from there, basically working a very normal job, into, you know, what you do these days? What was sort of your rabbit hole moment in that regard?
Yeah, so I was head of strength and conditioning and injury prevention at Chelsea Football Club. I had the thing I loved Sherlock Holmes when I was a boy, and I loved the way he would analyze, not in a like really anal looking at how someone's eye movements and all that shit where you read people's eye. Maybe that works or not. I'm not talking about that. I remember I met someone. I was talking in Norway at a conference, and there was a guy who did micro reading of features, and he was just staring at me, and like I was like couldn't talk, you know. Not that type. I mean, looking at the way someone, you know, Sherlock Holmes looked at their nails and their clothing and the way they moved to understand their behaviors. And at Chelsea, I realized that was my fascination. I would look at players and I go, I think he's going to get injured, or this joint's not working correctly, and that's coming from the right shoulder. So I started to see the chain effect of the body, that the body works like it's a skeleton with elastic bands all over it. So people think to strengthen the bicep muscle, you have to, you know, lift weights and shorten it, but you switch a muscle on by lengthening it. So it's not the shortening phase, it's when you lengthen it, it works like an elastic band. And then you look more carefully at the body, and the elastic band actually rotates, it flexes, bends, and lengthens. So the normal sports science, which is what I did, they told me that the bicep it flexes the arm, but in reality, the bicep slows down the extension of the arm. It's completely opposite. So they were coming at it from a cadaver, you know, like a dead body. If you activate the muscle, you go dunk, but that's dead. And that's how science really looks at reality. So I started questioning. I was like, oh shit, that's not what I was taught. And then I started to look at the body. And then what I started to notice was that players, when they were emotional or they were stressed, they were much more likely to get injured. And I started to study that more and look more at Tai Chi, Qigong. I was getting into, you know, I was trying everything to see if I could get results. Reiki, 5 animal movements, kinesiology, all sorts I was trying. And so I went, that's how I started going down the rabbit hole. It's this idea that I questioned everything. It didn't mean I went with some weird guru saying something. I tested, I verified before I trusted anyone. And so I tested, that doesn't work, that seems to work. I'm going to put that over here and I'm going to test it. And so it comes onto the story that's in the book in the first chapter, is that I did a very advanced test on the postural system to work out who was more likely to get injured. So what I would do was I'd bring the first team athlete in. He would stand with 1 foot on one scale, very precise scale, and 1 foot on another scale. I brought all of these in myself because no one was really helping me, but because they just went, yeah, go do Rob's weird stuff. And I'd stand him on there. There'd be a plumb line and lines in the back. I'd have video and photos. And what I would do, and I studied this in Paris with Dr. Bernard Bricot, a science called posturology. And what I would do was the body receives information and it positions the body in space. So when the receivers or the receptors of the information get faulty, so for instance, your eye is a little bit out, like, or your teeth, your teeth bite too quickly on one side rather than the other, you're jammed up here. You could have hearing one side weaker than the other, that'll twist the head. Your dominant eye, both of you, if you look at that yourself, your dominant eye is closer to the midline, or yours will be slightly different. There, you repositioned your head. So what you're looking for with an athlete is when they do that, then the body underneath shifts to keep the eyes level. So you need to be aware of these things: skin of the feet, scars on the body. So this player is ready to start, and the whole team came in to see me do this one particular assessment. So I was stressed because I was, a young guy, insecure. I had my ideas, but these were big, heavy medical hitters, And he's standing there, and I look down. I have my clipboard, and I look at the weight, and he's 8 kilos heavier on one of his legs. I think it was the right leg. It's 8 kilos heavier. And I'd studied that with a guy in San Diego, and let's say half a kilo or less was significant. You can have someone might say, yeah, but you have a longer leg, or possibly, but those are factors that I take into account further down from the bigger inputs of the eyes, the teeth, they're kind of secondary things. So it was massive discrepancy, and I looked to the medical team, and the podiatrist said, it must be short leg. The chiropractor said it must be his atlas, because chiropractors always go to there, or TMJ. And I said a stupid joke about the doctor that he was like, where do I inject? Because doctors really, they just go for the medical, like where do I inject, or which pill do I give? So everyone came at it from their particular expertise. And I went to start the test, and I thought, oh shit, I need to see if there's an emotional input here that I've been studying this for a while in the closet, so to speak. And so I remember thinking, it came out of me. I had to say it. And I said, what's the best sex you've ever had? Because I was working in a football club, and that's the kind of thing, you don't go too emotional. You bring up something. I needed to elicit, say, a positive emotion. And I said, what's the best sex you've ever had? And he looked up to the right and starts going, when you look at people really closely, they go through the filing cabinet. So he's like going duk, 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 duk in his eyes. And then he comes back 30 minutes later.
He was going through his list.
Yeah, exactly. There's my joke. I said that at the at Riga, and actually people laughed. They didn't think they would, but like 30 minutes later. And that's just how it is, right? And I didn't. So he said, "Oh yeah, it was this." And I looked down at the scales, and he was perfectly balanced. And I went, "Holy shit!" I was like, with all my expertise and all the expertise around me, no one there could have changed him that quickly. And I looked, and their eyes, like everyone's eyes, just there was like a cognitive dissonance, because it meant that all our degrees and all that shit just suddenly went out of the window. It's a little bit like Bitcoin. When you get it, you go, oh shit, you guys are in trouble, right? Like nothing else. It just complete disrupts. It's a disruptive technology, which I think my work is. So then I quickly said I needed a comparison. I said, what's the worst moment of your life? I remember this to this day. I could feel his energy just go, ooh. Like, people understand when you feel an energy shift in someone, you can walk in a room and you just feel like, or someone walks in and so he kind of collapsed, micro collapse in energy, definitely. And I looked down, he was 9 kilos heavier. So what what I didn't understand it straight away, but that moment, and as I said in the book, I remember walking back, looking down at my feet, going, something remarkable just happened, and I don't know what it means, but I'm going to find out what that meant. That was a rabbit hole moment, and what I've come to realize is the first thought was a strong thought. It strengthened him. People understand that when you think about your child or Bitcoin, whatever that gives you the thing, it strengthens you, and that can be felt. Tai Chi, Qigong, it's all based on hand positions. If you place your hands away, it weakens you. You turn your hands towards you, it strengthens you. If you have any sensitivity to that, you can feel it instantly, and brings it boom. It brings your energy up inside your torso. So there was a 1 and a 0. 1 strengthened him and 1 weakened him. It pushed him even further. So I came to understand that we're like computers, and we have building up of these weakening triggers and weakening things that at a certain point we're adapting as much as we can, and then we start to not be able to adapt anymore. And so I work with people on finding out what they are, and you can work and delete them. You just, that's where we go down the rabbit hole. But that took me a while to understand how to do that. And the other thing with the book was the hamster wheel. But I'll stop talking there.
One thing that struck me when you was talking is that you were mentioning the experts, the expertise of these people, and what came to mind through your explanation of actually looking into alternative ways made me think of something I thought of a while ago, and that was we rely on diagnostics and diagnoses, from these doctors or psychologists and things like that. But I'm wondering whether there's any sort of thought that you've had regarding Western medicine and other ideas from other regions of the world that aren't so popular but should be actually taken on as something serious and credible, and we're just sort of obsessed with putting pills in people and sort of diagnosing them with something rather than the more holistic approach.
Yeah, I mean, that's a massive, we could talk for literally hours about that. What two things come to mind is there is a lot of bullshit in the holistic space. So it's a little, for me, it's like Web3. A lot of the stuff, all the gurus and spirituality, because it's, I've spent a long time looking at this, and I think I work with people who expect results from me. They pay me a lot of money to get results, and I'm only interested in results, which is what took me to Bitcoin. It's because it's based on truth and truthful things, like it's decentralized and secure. Okay, I got, that's what it is. And then you have these other things that say they pretend to be decentralized and secure, but that's the Web3 and crypto, which is like hanging on the coattails of the truth of Bitcoin. And so when the same goes for my work, is I've always looked for what is the truth, and it's not flashy, and it's not you don't need to have a beard and a man bun or like a wolf t-shirt to be spiritual. But the great thing is, aside the maybe me being a little negative, I want to be constructive, is there's truth there. And and so when I'm working with people, I had a client yesterday who came on the call and said, I've got 4 months to live. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And that's quite an extreme. But what I work with them on is what's actually going, like how has this come about, and what are they, how can they deal with it? So they don't want me saying, oh, be hopeful and, believe in this. You need to believe in some. I'm like, what are the facts? What are you thinking? And then it's only with the facts. Does that make sense? So the facts, it might sound like that does nothing. That does everything. Because when you find the truth, it resolves everything instantly. So I'm very, it's not woo-woo is what I'm talking about. It sounds, because there's a lot of Web3 guys, in spiritual, they're usually into spiritual stuff, Ethereum guys and stuff. But I've been looking at that for very many years, and there's a guy, Douglas Wallace. He's a PhD in America. He's the top mitochondrial researcher in the world. He's 65 odd, absolute legend in his field, pure science, truth. And I listened to one of his lectures, and I didn't understand I didn't really understand very much at all. I understood mitochondria. And then at the end, he said, oh, and by the way, I've opened up a clinic in China because I think the meridians are mitochondrial systems, or the mitochondrial systems are the Chinese meridian energy systems that the Chinese found out about thousands of years ago. I was trying to bring that in. I brought in an acupuncturist at Chelsea many years ago. I still talk to him. And I was mocked. He was mocked behind his doors, like, Chinese medicine has been mocked as not science, and now the main science guys like, oh, by the way, I think, and everyone will forget, like, so it all roads lead to the truth. Let's say, I don't, you know what I mean.
100%. And part of me thinks, on a little kind of sideline as well, that's why psychedelics are becoming more and more popular now, and people are actually starting to study that as a way that people can formulate and deal with, or get that sense of self and actually deal with the actual traumas that they've been holding on to.
Absolutely.
So there's more sort of other ideas being introduced. And for me personally, on a personal level, I've been going to therapy for a while now, every week, and ultimately what I've learned throughout this whole process is that you need to have a sense of self, and you need to be truthful to yourself and explore the truth. Where does this feeling come from? Where is it rooted? And then actually, not by acknowledging in it and engaging with the truth, that's the only way you can move forward and become more, not enlightened, but more kind of less heavy. And that's what resonated with me when you were talking about the comparison of the person's weight depending on what their mindset was at the time.
Yes.
Helping yourself understand who you are, where you come from, and what impacts people have had in your life have helped me to navigate it in a more positive way, I suppose.
Beautiful. But I couldn't say that, but I would say in the last couple of years, my work has gone very heavy on understanding that trauma in childhood and the disconnect, that all ties in with the disconnect in money, families disconnected, war traumas, the British massively traumatized people. I was talking with a Brazilian. I was saying British is so traumatized, and we traumatized the Irish, and we took away their culture, and but the Irish have drinking problems. And I'm like, no, the British have drinking. And this Brazilian said, hey, we had 400 years of slavery, and so every populace is traumatized, and the trauma creates aberrant software programs that I call hamster wheels, because if you watch them very closely, like you're doing, Ian, you're observing the mind, the self, and these glitchy, aberrant programs and the faster and smarter you are, the faster the hamster wheels go, and the harsher you are on yourself, because you should be able to deal with it. No one's dealing with it. Like, you either deal with it or you're in denial. And everyone, I'm looking for people who are not traumatized. Like, that's kind of like a safari is looking for.
If you don't deal with it, Rob, right, you pass it on to the next generation, right? It just becomes like a generational trauma cycle.
100%.
So if I can do the proof of work now and sort of break that cycle for the people behind me, then you know I'm not only helping myself, but I'm helping people behind me. And I think that really does connect to Bitcoin in a way, right? Because we're 100%. Here, we're showing up, we're doing this content, and you're putting the signal out there in your own way as well. And with that, you know, what we're trying to do is have a bit of a betterment for society as a whole, and for people to be less traumatized in this fiat system that we're trapped in or imprisoned within, or whatever sort of language you want to use around that. So, Joel, over to you. Sorry, I can talk about this for
Yeah,
hours,
I was
but
just Ian. I was going to say
yeah, go on,
what we're
please.
talking about is the truth. People need to understand the
Yes, yes,
truth
yes,
about the
yes.
monetary system, and people go, "Oh, you're in therapy." No, I'm trying to find the truth. I want to know the truth about my mind, because the mind ruins you. The monetary system ruins us. The suffering is just the two are just spiraling, and Bitcoin's coming up, and also we need to get away from Web3 spiritual. Some people like that. Okay, fine, but it's just truth. Forget all the bullshit, fancy clothes and stuff. It is about what is going like we need to have a conversation. All top performers, like athletes, usually traumatized. That's why they're so good. That's why they struggle when like it needs to be talked about. It's not we shouldn't necessarily admire someone who's so traumatized that they become world champion. I'm going to do that work because I want to know the truth. And so yeah, sorry, Joel, you get me on
Yeah,
that.
no worries.
You get me
No worries, no worries.
fired.
I mean, two comments there. So since I was 12 till 21, essentially I turned professional golfer and then got into a car accident, and that sort of ended everything. But I do remember maybe 6 tournaments in my lifetime where I had these moments where I can tell you to this day what the grass smelled like, what I was wearing. I don't know which part of my balls was scratching if I took a swing, whatever. But I couldn't remember the results I was playing in. I just remember actually having won and sort of being in that weird, you can call it zone, you can call it flow state, whatever. And when I read your book on my way home from Riga, because it is a 3-hour flight and your book is just slim
Sure.
enough to
You went
finish it
to
in
the
a couple of
toilet
hours.
and then you read it in the toilet and came out and there was
Yeah,
just
you
one
know
person
Joel well then.
waiting.
Yes.
How
You know
long?
me well, yeah. I had the toilet seat. No, but I read it. I was like, holy shit, this really is what actually, like professional athletes, you can even go further, managers in top position aim to do, because you're really decoupling your fucked up mind, or like the impressions you get in daily, from what you're actually trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And in that sense, you sort of found a formula to reprogram people. Can you maybe talk a bit about Mind OS and like what the goal of your work is to actually help people sort of spread out these negative thoughts and positive thoughts, or however you want to categorize it?
Okay, so I started as a rabbit hole. So if we go down in depth, I started, you remember, looking at the body, and then I went down emotions and energy. And then it took me a long time to find this 1 and 0. And I like technology, so I like things to be, my holy grail was be able to resolve pain on the spot. Like, is it possible just to instantly be able to resolve things? And I got to that point, and not always, because I found a deeper stuff underneath it. But what I came to realize is that the body, everything is either strong or weak. I call this meditation OS, is because you can go in, look at your computer, your body, whatever you're feeling, if it's emotional or there's pain in your body, and it's like looking at the CPU, and you can find out what's the primary thing weakening me, find it and clear it, and then go back and see how it feels, and it'll have changed. And everyone has that internal innate physical intelligence, is what I call it. So I teach that in my school, Meditation OS. So you can work on your kids, you can work on anything that you're doing, and you can improve it. And I've had amazing results with that. But I'm always looking like, is there more? Is there more? So if you imagine I'm working on the 1s and 0s, and then there were some people that kept bringing back the problems and having addictions, or they would go in cycles, and then I'd see them 6 months later and they go, yeah, it's kind of coming back. So then I came, and Bitcoin kind of showed me that. It was like, what's the base layer? What's going on here? And I started to see patterns in the way people were talking. And like I do here, it's a hamster wheel. I would jot down words, and I started to see patterns, and I looked, oh shit, this is working like a hamster wheel. And so that developed my work. So what I've come to realize is I teach people the 1s and 0s, and that you can work on pretty much anything. However, there's the mind that is constantly talking, and that feeds all the emotions into the body. which slows down the body and gives you symptoms, illnesses, diseases, pain in your body. So the mind creates, it can be creating anger, affecting your liver, affecting your eyes, fear, kidneys, and stuff. So I teach people how to do that, but you can learn that yourself, the ones and zeros. But I put together a course and say that's like a technique, a technology. When it comes to the OS, the book, I want to show people you do that yourself. You're your own authority. Like, people need to understand that, yeah, you can go see a therapist, Ian, and I could go to see a therapist, and sometimes you need to go, especially if it's something physical. You either go see someone like me or a massage therapist or something. But when it's that constant, you go to bed at night and you wake up in the morning, you're anxious, you can't sleep, you're trying to be with your kids, but you're frightened about, or that discourse in your head that's horrible. That is, you are your own authority, and you can decentralize the mind. You can't change anything by trying to make yourself better. That's the centralized mind. Jeff Booth, you can't change the system from within the system, right? And so when you start to see the system and how it works like a hamster wheel, then, so I call that decentralizing the mind, is by observing it. Then you become your own authority, and then you become masterless, because that is your master, and it's screwing you, and you're in prison, and everyone's in prison. So with my work, I'll either, if someone's working with me, I'll either go to the board, and if I hear a pattern in the background, like with the lady with the cancer, she had a deep program, which for me created her illness. So there's nothing I can do about I can strengthen her organs and stuff, but we need to get to the deep underlying reason why she attracted the illness. So that's my experience. And that might sound a bit woo-woo, but that's what I see. I hope I didn't go off on a tangent there too much, Joel.
No, it completely makes sense. In summary, for me, what I think you're trying to say is that your mind is trying to tell you something, and it sends signals to certain parts of your body for you to try and translate that into what is going on for you, and maybe you can use that as a way to
100%.
sort of understand not only yourself a bit more, but how to sort of overcome these ailments or these bad back that I've been suffering with for the last couple of weeks that I can't get rid of. Yeah, stretching might help, and exercise and stuff like that. But really, if you start to focus more on the mind, that's where the true problem lies, right?
Yeah, and in my new book, I've started a new book. That's a teaser. The little book for the toilet is a teaser book for a teaser toilet book. I'm working on the proper book now. I'm working with a lady in America who's amazing editor. So we're on this every week working on it. One of the things I'm going to be working on is how the mind says things like, I need to step up. I need to step up. I need to step forward. I need to go forward. I'm going backwards. These type of, if you listen and watch closely in your mind, there's a story I tell of a CEO of a company. He came to me. He wanted to work on some emotional stuff, but he said, I've got a problem with my knee. When I squat, and he loves squatting and deadlifting, it was hurting him. He couldn't train. So I said, when does it hurt? And he goes, when I go backwards. And the backwards dropped. If you listen to people's wording, when they say a word that's weak, it drops. You can feel it. So his business going backward, or anything going backwards, was painful for him. And the moment I told him, I said, squat now, it was gone. He was back squatting. It's never come back. So you could say, oh, it was all in his head. I'm saying everything's in your head. And it's real. It's not that it's not real. It's real, and it'll kill you. There's no separation between the mind and the body, Ian. And Jung says your unconscious meets you in your body. So I'm kind of working on a all theory, kind of like a complete theory of why we get sick, or why we keep attracting struggles. And it's all to do with the external world and the internal world. There's no separation. And
right, understood. Yeah, and maybe we should use our undiscovered self to discover ourselves, right? As Jung might sort of guide us towards. But as we're working towards the end of this episode, Rob, which has been fascinating, I can talk for hours with
I
you
feel
about
like
this,
I've
and maybe
talked
we
too
can
much.
reconnect. No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
you
yeah.
certainly have not. You haven't spoken enough, and maybe we can have you back to talk a little bit more deeper when your new book comes out as
Sure,
well.
I'd love to.
But at the end of our episodes, we do the All Roads Lead Back to Bitcoin challenge for all of our guests to prove that all roads do in fact lead back to Bitcoin. So what we usually do is give you a word, a topic, or a phrase, and then we just try to get you to then relate that back to Bitcoin somehow. So,
Okay.
Rob, are you ready for the All Roads Lead Back to
Oh
Bitcoin
shit!
challenge, sir?
I just felt my energy drop.
How
So I got
much
to
more do you
relate
weigh now?
whatever you say back to Bitcoin. Yeah. Okay. I'm ready.
Yeah, it can be as philosophical or direct as you like. Okay, and
Okay.
we'll give you some thinking time, so don't worry, Rob.
Okay.
So all roads lead back to Bitcoin. Word that we've come up with is detective. Seeing as you were a big fan of Sherlock Holmes, we thought that might be an appropriate word to use.
I love
So how
that.
does detective relate back to Bitcoin?
Well, I suppose Bitcoin, when you see it, you realize that you have to um you no longer take things at face value, and you start to question and break down and interrogate everything that you like, from why are they saying meat's bad. Let me look at the research on meat. Oh, it's the most nutritious. It's got the most nutrition, bioavailable nutrition, everything. Oh, does that tie back to 2030 WF? But then you go, but is there a climate? I'm not going into the climate here, but then you start going, well, if they lied, if that's not true, and that's not true, and that's not true. And the more I've looked at Bitcoin, I'm like, shit, everything the Bitcoin has said is true. And so you become a detective. You no longer are the victim. That's right. You literally go, I'm not trusting it. I'm going to look at this myself. Yeah.
100%.
This
And what I
kind of
did notice, sorry, Joe, what I did notice while you're doing that is your filing cabinet in your mind.
Oh
yeah.
my
You did
god, my
earlier.
filing cabinet's going. Yeah, it's encrypted. It's on hard drive. Hopefully you can't access it.
But
Joe.
it kind of leads beautifully into the saying "we are all Satoshi," because at the end, everyone actually, as a node or as a verifier, has to do the proof of work and realize if the information that you've been giving is right or wrong. So it kind of leads into a nice
Yeah.
circle there and a nice
No,
sphere.
beautiful. And like my passion, like what's important for me is that I take responsibility for everything I see in the world. And so when I point my finger at something and go, look at that asshole, there's three fingers pointing back at me. So Bitcoin acts as a mirror, and it shows us, it chews up egos. Like, they get trampled on by Bitcoin because it just does. It's yin energy. It's just absorbing everything. But yeah, we are, every individual needs to take responsibility, buy Bitcoin, hodl, and work on yourself and find out about yourself.
That's a beautiful way of ending the episode, I think. Rob, if people want to find out more about you, obviously, a link to the book will be in the show notes. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Rob Brinded, Instagram, Rob Brinded, robbrinded.com website. And if anyone is interested in understanding about their own behavior, one session, and it will give you like a leap. You in 1 hour session, you can really understand one of your main behaviors, and then you go away, and you'll become, you'll free yourself from it. And I think that's the biggest return on investment anyone can make. So.
And fellow rabbit hole dwellers, if you've missed any of that, check out the show notes, because everything related to Rob, his book, and his websites is all below. So please go and check that out. Rob, again, thank you. It's been a fascinating journey with you down your Bitcoin rabbit hole.
Thank
And
you.
we hope to have you back on one day in the future. So take care.
Thank you.